Welcome this morning, nice to see you. Hs2 and its impact on the Chilterns area of outstanding natural beauty. I'll start with a much revised construction timetable. Phase 1 from London to Birmingham was originally due to be completed in 2026, and Phase 2, which extends the route onto Manchester and Leeds, was due to be completed in 2033. 3 years ago, Hs2 confirmed that the project would be delayed by up to 7 years. In 2020, it was further announced that initial services would start in 2029 at the earliest, and that they would start from Old Oak Common and not Euston. Services wouldn't start from Euston until at least 2031, and possibly 10 years later than first stated. The planned initial 14 trains an hour in peak times would not be possible until services start and finish at Euston. Old Oak Common can only handle 6 trains an hour when it serves as a terminus. Last November, it was announced that the eastern leg to Leeds would be cancelled. It's estimated that stopping construction at East Midlands Parkway rather than Leeds would save £18 billion. Last month, Andrew Stevenson, the Hs2 minister, confirmed that the Goulburn link between Crewe and Manchester will also be cancelled, saving another £3 billion. Trains will eventually leave a massively redeveloped Euston station in a tunnel. Hs2 has shifted its focus from developing a world-class rail station at Euston to one that is highly functional and affordable. Following months of deliberation, Hs2 changed the design for Euston to a station with 10 platforms rather than 11 to save cost. The only station between Euston and Birmingham will be a new interchange at Old Oak Common in West London. This is an artist's impression of what it might look like. It will become the UK's best connected super hub, the largest subsurface station in the UK, and the biggest station ever built in a single stage build in the UK. It will have 14 platforms, 6 for Hs2, 4 Elizabeth Line platforms, and 4 conventional rail platforms for Heathrow Express and Great Western Railway services to Wales and the South West. The route will continue in a tunnel, and there will be 6 tunnel boring machines, TBMs we refer to them as, and they will bore 2 13-mile tunnels. And they will be starting soon. They're being assembled now at West Ruislip, and they will be starting soon. They will take nearly 2 years to dig the tunnels, finishing early in 2024. The route continues on towards West Ruislip Station, where it leaves into a cutting 15 metres deep. It then continues alongside the existing Chiltern railway line. That's the line that goes through High Wycombe rather than the Amisham and Wendover branch. And this shows preparations for the construction of the tunnel portal. And as I say, it's also where they're assembling 2 of the tunnel boring machines. The route crosses the Colne Valley Regional Park near Denham on a viaduct over 2 miles long and up to 10 metres high, with trains travelling at 200 miles an hour. It will be the longest viaduct in the country by a considerable distance. A haul road is being constructed along the length of the viaduct on a series of jetties across 4 lakes. This will take most of the construction traffic off local roads. Here we're looking back across the first lake, known as Harefield No. 2 Lake, towards the south end of the viaduct. It then crosses the Grand Union Canal and we are assured that the towpath will remain open during construction. And there's a break in the haul road here, so it doesn't go, there's a missing link, which is in actual fact is across the Grand Union Canal. The viaduct will be supported by 56 piers, some of which will be built, in fact, most of which will be built in the lakes. This is already at just north of the Grand Union Canal. This is pier number 20, and it's on the edge of Savay Lake. 292 board piles up to 55 meters deep will be required to support the viaduct piers and the abutments at each end of the viaduct. The haul road then crosses Moor Hall Road and Corder Lake. Apparently the fish have been removed from here to a new temporary home. The jetties cross the River Colne, and this has been slightly diverted around one of the viaduct piers. Here we're looking south, back along the route as it crosses the regional park, and you can see almost the entire length of the viaduct there. And you can just make out the southern end of the viaduct beyond the canal. The route then crosses the A142 North Orbital Road at West Hyde. And this is looking east along the North Orbital towards Maple Cross. Construction of the viaduct started at the end of May, and it's been due to be completed at the end of 2024. This is the launching girder, which is used to put the viaduct viaduct deck in place. It's not actually new and has previously been used to build a viaduct between Hong Kong and Macau. You can see here the sections of the viaduct being gradually lifted into place. It doesn't happen very quickly, and if you stand watching, you're wondering whether anything is happening. But that's the first sections of deck being lifted into place. And this is just beyond there. This is the north abutment, and this is where the viaduct joins the West Hyde embankment, which then continues off to the right. This HS2 video just shows you how the sections are put into place. Quite an amazing structure. The route then leaves the viaduct on the embankment and then into the Tilehouse Lane cutting. And this shows the realigned lane crossing over Tilehouse Lane overbridge. Here we're looking back along the route under the Tilehouse Lane bridge. And this is the Chiltern Tunnel's South Portal construction compound, and it's huge. It covers 136 acres. And we talk about portal, that's just another name for the entrance and exit to a tunnel. Apart from extensive office accommodation, there are a number of factories and storage facilities, as well as a visitor centre, actually. This is the only site that provides overnight accommodation, which you can see just to the south of the main car park. The overnight accommodation is mainly for those that are working around the clock on the tunnel boring machines. The first building you can see, the biggest building, is the Viaduct Segment Factory. Then the next one is the Tunnel Lining Segment Factory, and the far building is the Slurry Treatment Plant. There's also a water treatment plant to treat the excess water created by the tunnelling operations and the batching plant, along with the surface water from the site. This is the Viaduct segment factory, and it's huge. It's actually bigger than the Albert Hall. Each section is cast against its predecessor to ensure a perfect fit. Each will weigh up to 140 tons, and they're currently making 12 each week. They are moved outside to cure and then taken along the haul road as they're needed. The giant crane, which moves the segments around the worksite, has the biggest lifting capacity in the UK, and this is actually the first time it's ever been built and put to use. The second building is the tunnel lining segment factory. 196 lining segments are made each day, and each of them weighs 8 tons. They are not all identical, and each has an identifying barcode. They are stored outside for 28 days to cure, and then moved along the tunnel on these double-ended vehicles. Each section of the tunnel contains 7 segments, and there you can see there's 7 segments on the back, so they're taken up one section at a time. And if you think about it, they will have to travel up to 10 miles up to when they get to the northern end of the tunnel. And I think it's a difficult logistical problem to make sure that they all arrive. They're not all the same, and they all arrive in the right place at the right time. Quite incredible. The third building is the slurry treatment plant. 3 million cubic meters of spoil will be removed from the tunnel and treated here. This is the largest filter press in the world, where water is removed by squeezing the slurry at a pressure of over 200 pounds per square inch. And they can process 30 tons of slurry every hour. The treated slurry is then used for local landscaping and was indeed used for the construction of the viaduct embankment, which we mentioned earlier. This will also help create around 90 hectares of wildlife-rich chalk grassland habitats once construction is complete. The batching plant here produces all the concrete used on site, as well as for all the tunnel vent shafts and the North Tunnel portal. And this saves an awful lot of lorry journeys because, as you'll see later on, subsequent sites, they have to import viaduct sections and they all come in by road. The 2 TBMs are nearly 200 meters long and have been specifically designed for the mix of chalk and flint they will encounter in the Chilterns. They began tunnelling in May last year, and they are expected to take around 3 years to excavate the 9-meter diameter tunnels, cutting around 15 meters a day. Each has a crew of 17 people. And here you can just see, this is the start of the tunnel. You can just see the beginning of the first section on the left-hand side. And this is inside the tunnelling shield, where the spoil will be mixed with water to form a slurry, which will be then pumped back to the treatment plant. And this shows the tunnel lining section being put into place. 7 segments in each section, and I've said each weighing up to 8 tons. And they're put into place by this giant robotic arm. So far, at the beginning of this month, they've done 3 miles of tunnelling so far. They've passed under Chalfont St Giles and are on their way towards the Chalfont St Giles vent shaft. In May, there was a fire in one of the tunnels. It was on a vehicle that transports workers into the tunnel, one that's shown here. The three removed themselves safely from the car and sheltered within the TBM safety chamber. Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service were in attendance, but were not used. All the HGVs arriving at this compound now use the temporary slip roads directly onto on and off the M25. The route then enters the 10.6-mile long twin-bore Chiltern tunnel, passing under the M25. There will be cross passages between the tunnels every 320 metres, and there will be some 40 in total. This shows the 4 tunnel ventilation shafts across the Chilterns, and there will also be an intervention shaft near the North Portal at South Heath. These would also be used for emergency access during operation of the railway. Tunnels will be up to 90 metres deep, and the deepest part is just before the Amisham shaft at the top of Gore Hill. The A413, which we mentioned, is the main road passing the Chalfonts and Amisham, and then on to Great Missenden and Wendover. The first of the vent shafts is in Chesham Lane, Chalfont St Peter, up near the Chiltern Open Air Museum. This shows how all the ventilation shafts will be constructed. Put simply, a cylindrical hole is cut, then filled with concrete creating the diaphragm wall, known as the D-wall. And this is the D-wall method of constructing as a shaft. That's what it's known as. The spoil is then removed, creating the shaft with a base added in preparation for the arrival of the TBMs. And a head house is finally built over the shaft. And this is the only part that will be visible above ground level. The vent shaft here is now complete, and the internal structures are being installed. And you will notice now when you visit, if you pass any of these shafts, there's a huge crane in place. And this is what they're doing, putting the internal structures in. A basement for the ventilation fans has also been constructed. And this is the deepest of the shafts at 78 metres. The TBMs passed here in March. This was the first shaft they arrived at. And this gives you an idea of what the head house would look like, the design for the head house. And it was decided, the design was decided after consultation with relevant bodies. And it's designed to look like a farm building in a rural location. In fact, all of the shafts, other than Amisham, which we'll come on to later, that's what they look like, is farm buildings. A 400-metre long temporary haul road here links the site directly to the A413. All the construction sites have approved access routes, and the one for this site is via the A413 to the A40 at Gerrards Cross, and then the M40 and on to the M25. Temporary traffic lights control traffic on the A413. This is the first, if you're coming towards travelling away from the Chalfonts, this is the first of the traffic lights. And there'll be an operation till the shaft is completed, which will be early in 2025. The whole road and the traffic lights will be removed and the land will be restored to its former use. The tunnel then passes under the River Misball for the first time in the centre of Chalfont and Giles, and this is just about where it passed under. We had serious concerns about this very valuable chalk stream, concerned that it could be lost forever. As it was, the TBMs passed under the Misball over the May Day bank holiday, and apparently without incident. This is where the TBMs had reached when the fire I mentioned earlier occurred in one of the tunnels. And both TBMs stopped work here for a few days and were parked under the co-op in Chalfont St Giles while the cause of the fire was investigated. It's very strange to stand here taking a picture and imagine these TBMs parked 28 metres below. The Chalfont St Giles vent shaft is situated at the top of Bottom House Farm Lane. Excavation of the shaft here is complete and the base slab of the shaft is being formed. The basement that will house the fans is also being constructed. Tunnel depth here is over 34 metres and the site will also house an auto transformer station. The TBMs are due to arrive in August or September this year, and work is due to be finished by January 2025. There are worse places to be a crane driver. This is a quite extraordinary picture. I think this is one of the cranes that are now in place, as I say, at most of the shaft sites. Access to the shaft is via a temporary haul road linking it to the A413, and this will be removed once construction of the vent shaft is complete. The approved access route for this site is the same as for the Chalfont St Peter shaft, and all HGVs have to turn right when leaving the haul road. The entrance to Bottom House Farm Lane is stopped up, and there is a link to the haul road to provide access further down the haul road. And this is actually where the two link. The lane was closed to all traffic for much of last year. Frustratingly, this included pedestrians and cyclists. A large drain was installed alongside the length of the lane. The lane was also widened to provide permanent access to the vent shaft. It remains single lane, but passing places have been added. So this is how it used to be. This is looking east along Bottom House Farm Lane, where the South Bucks Way footpath crosses before construction got underway. Half a mile of hedging, the whole of one side, all the way up to the vent shaft, was removed, very sadly and very shockingly. This is probably at the worst of times here. This has now been replanted with over 9,000 plants being used. And this is what it looks like now. It is different, but I have to concede it's nowhere near as bad as I thought it would be. Further up, this was the lane as it was approaching the site of the vent shaft. And you can see the hedges on both sides of the road. It was removed. The whole road was removed, and the hedge on one side, and it was replaced with the haul road. And once the haul road is removed, which it will be removed when construction is complete, the lane will be restored, and planting hopefully will restore it to somewhere. It won't be quite as dramatic as it was, but at least it will be an improvement on how it is now. The Amisham vent shaft is situated in Warden Lane, west of Amisham Hospital. The A404 goes to High Wycombe, and this is where the A413 turns right towards Great Missenden. This was taken when construction of the D-wall was underway. The tunnel depth here will be over 40 metres. All the shafts will have a permanent area of hard standing for emergency service vehicles. This is what the diaphragm wall cutter actually looks like. And here it is in operation. And they cut 16 panels all the way down the whole depth of the shaft. The bentonite slurry is used to lubricate the drill and to stabilize the cutting. Each panel was then filled with concrete in a continuous process. And as I've mentioned, concrete for all the shafts comes from the batching plant at the South Tunnel portal. All the vehicles have their wheels washed before leaving all the sites. Something they're very concerned about is spreading mud onto the roads. Weather like this, dust is a big problem, and there's continuous dust suppression with this bowser going from one site to another, just trying to keep the dust down. Once the de-walling was complete, the associated plant was removed in preparation for the next stage, and this involved the insertion of grouting into a ring of piles drilled around the shaft to stabilize the area all around the shaft. These are the drilling rigs in operation. As with most sites, air quality and noise levels are constantly monitored. The hoardings surrounding the site have been decorated with murals depicting the history of Amisham. And these extend alongside the A404. The huge rig you can see here, which was very obvious to anybody passing, was used for secant piling. And what this is, it consists of a large number of interlocking piles, which are used to create the head house basement. These will eventually house the fans used to ventilate the tunnel. Excavation of the vent shaft here is now complete, and I did wonder how they would get everything out right down to the bottom, quite a few meters down this shaft. And you can see the excavation underway there. This telescopic grab excavator can reach down 35 meters. And below that, a container is lowered by a crane to be filled by well, there's two diggers actually down there at the bottom. Altogether, 11,000 cubic meters of spoil were removed from this shaft. And if you wondered how it works, this is the grab in operation. It takes 5 grabs to fill a truck, and it made me think of emptying a bucket of sand with a teaspoon, a long and laborious process. The spoil that was excavated is dry, so it didn't need any treatment, and then that was removed, as all the spoil is, from all the tunnels, the vent shafts, down to the South Tunnel portal, where once again used for landscaping. Hs2 have been consulting on the head house design, and their proposal was for a circular single-story building surrounded by a spiral weathered steel wall with aluminium fans on the top. These plans were not popular, to say the least. And this is the latest design. They withdrew the previous design, and these were revealed at a meeting held in Amisham just this week. It's made the building much less visible and replaced the weathered steel wall with one covered with flint. Construction of the head house is due to begin in April 2024. And I think once the planting is in place and the trees have started to mature, I don't think you'll see very much of this head house. The construction of the internal vent shaft structures The floors and access is now underway in preparation for the arrival of the TBMs early next year. The vent shaft, they're all due to be completed sometime in 2025, and this one is due to be completed in April 2025. The tunnel passes between the 18th century Chardelot's house and Chardelot's lake, and then under the Misbourne for the second time. The fourth vent shaft is alongside the A413 in Little Missenden along the dual carriageway. Tunnel depth here is over 35 metres, and this site will also house an auto transformer station. This is looking west across the 413 and shows the close proximity of the River Misbourne. And once again, we have concerns about the tunnelling when it passes under the Misbourne. The approved access route for all of the sites from Amisham to Wendover is via the A413 back to Amisham and to the A355, and then up Gore Hill to Beaconsfield and onto the M40. Access to the shaft here is via a newly constructed right-hand turn across the dual carriageway. I'm sure that any of you that have travelled to Beaconsfield will be aware now that the link road in Beaconsfield is open, so that the traffic doesn't have to go around the little roundabout actually in Beaconsfield, but now you can turn left before and link up with the Pie Bush roundabout on the A40 on the way to the M40. This right-hand turn will save a 5-mile trip, because previously vehicles had to go all the way up to the Frith Hill roundabout at Great Missenden and then back again. And yeah, one does wonder how vehicles like this manage to negotiate this small roundabout. The turning is again controlled by traffic lights, and it will all be removed and the central reservation reinstated once construction of the vent shaft is complete. And we just hope that they remember to put the daffodils back. This shows construction of the diaphragm wall here. Steel reinforcing frames were inserted, and this is the same with all the shafts. Some are made with glass fibre reinforced plastic, and these are used where the TBMs will break through, so they will just tunnel straight through this. And they're used at all the diaphragm walls, including the north portal. The panels are then filled with concrete, and in a continuous process. So sometimes the working hours were extended so that this could be completed in one go. As with all event shaft, working hours were temporarily extended at this time from 7 p.m. till 10 p.m. This is what the head house will look like here. 1,700 trees will be planted, some 20 different species. I don't think you'll see the vent shaft once the trees have matured a bit. TBM should reach here in July or August next year. And again, here work was due to be completed in April 2025. One public right-of-way is diverted around the compound here, and it will be reinstated along its original route once construction is complete. The final shaft is the Chesham Road intervention shaft, situated near the former Annie Bailey's restaurant in South Heath. And you can see here the large number of archaeological trial trenches that were dug before construction got underway, not just here, but along the whole route. As this will be an intervention shaft only, it will not have any fans, so it will not have a basement. Shaft depth here is over 43 metres, and this site will also have an auto transformer station. Because the shaft is above the water table, a different form of construction called the Caisson Method is being used for this shaft. Put simply, sections of the caisson are constructed above ground and then sunk to the required level by excavating material from within the caisson. I remember saying at the last update that I couldn't say more because I hadn't visited the site. Well, I spent 3 hours here on a visit last month, and at last I've got my head around this different construction method. I even managed a trip to the bottom of the shaft. So this is about, the shaft is probably about half as deep there as it will be. So this is looking down towards the bottom of the shaft from the construction platform where the next section is constructed. And this is the base, and this is where they remove the spoil and to allow the shaft to sink, which I can't imagine will work, but there you are. That's how they do it. So this little bit of video is a bit jerky, so I apologize for that. One public right-of-way has been diverted around the spoil storage site here, and that will be reinstated along its route once construction is complete. The TBMs are due to arrive here at the end of next year, and again here work is due to finish in April 2025. This shows how close the shaft is to the North Tunnel portal and the cutting beyond. And the woodland between the two is Sibley's Coppice, which is a piece of ancient woodland. The North Tunnel portal is situated just north of Frith Hill in South Heath. Here we are looking across the portal and the South Heath cutting towards Potter Row. And this is looking east towards the tunnel portal, and locals will recognise Jenkins Wood beyond, with Potter Row beyond that. The portal head wall is constructed using the same diaphragm wall method as the vent shaft, so we're familiar with that, and that's the grab that is used to excavate the shaft. And it's a highly skilled, the crane driving is very highly skilled, and it was pointed out that you won't find any crane drivers under 50 years old. And the crew, all the crew here are actually Spanish. Now we're looking north from the tunnel portal, and this is where the TBMs will exit the tunnel. They are due to finish here in December next year, and they will then be dismantled and scrapped. And the contractors here actually change from a line joint venture to EKFB. Walkers may remember, much loved, the public right-of-way GMI 13, which crossed the route here, right across the middle of the previous picture. It is closed during construction and will eventually be reinstated across the tunnel portal. We're looking east here towards Jenkins Wood. These are the bentonite silos with water storage tanks beyond. And also this is the slurry treatment plant. Water is supplied from the local supply and is delivered by tanker, which you can see unloading here. Treated slurry is then transported to the South Tunnel portal, where again, the same as the others, it will be used for landscaping. The tunnel will run through deep alluvial clay between Frith Hill and the North Portal, and this will be not strong enough to support the tunnel. 96 concrete supporting pillars, known as barrettes, are being constructed, again using the diaphragm walling method that's used at on the portal. When the TBMs will arrive, as we mentioned, they will bore straight through the sections of the barrettes to form a safely strengthened tunnel. The former Weights and Measures gym, and before that it was the Black Horse pub in Frith Hill, has sadly been demolished. This will allow permanent access to the portal once construction is complete and the temporary haul road is removed. Access to the North Tunnel portal is via the temporary haul road from the Link Road roundabout at Great Missenden. Another haul road has been constructed alongside the route linking all the construction work as far as Wendover. It means a lot more devastation, but does remove traffic from the local roads. A section of the central reservation between Frith Hill and Link Road roundabouts on the A413, I believe, should have been removed now to allow very large loads direct access to the haul road. So they will go round to the right-hand side, cut across the dual carriageway and enter the haul road to the right of the roundabout.
Now being completed.
Thank you. These loads will be mainly, the biggest will be sections of the Wendover Dean Viaduct, which we will come to later. There are also concerns about these loads passing under the Chiltern Railway Bridge to the north of Deep Mill Lane. The contractors, I think, are also worried about this, and they intend to have a trial run with a wooden mock-up of a viaduct section, something I would like to see. But anyway, we shall see how that develops. The route continues in a cutting under a series of bridges, and these are all over bridges, meaning that they will cross over the railway. So moving north, the first over bridge will take public right-of-way GMI 12 over the route here, down the middle of the picture. And this is the first EKFB compound. And the top car park is actually where Mulberry Park Hill once stood. It's the only house to be demolished here along this section. And you can see what remains of the garden just below it. Looking east towards Potter Row, showing the two footpath over bridges, the one we just looked at, and now moving along to GMI 2. And this is to the right. The footpath is actually to the right of the picture. And that remain open during construction, and it will be eventually diverted across an overbridge which crosses the route just to the north, and you can see where that will cross just above the Havenfield Wood. There is a manned crossing in place here, which is probably just as well with these things crossing. This is where the road then crosses Leather Lane. 11 large oak trees have been removed so far. Offline construction means the bridge will be constructed to the south of the road, which will then be diverted once construction is complete. An alternative plan for the overbridge, moving it to the north of the lane and involving the loss of fewer trees, has been put forward and is still being discussed. It is possible, but we await developments. Leather Lane is a very important bat corridor and provided refuge to at least 7 species of bat, including the endangered barberstole bat. This is looking across the actual route itself as it crosses Leather Lane. And this is looking west towards the whole road crossing. And this is the reality now. These Volvo dump trucks have 16-litre turbocharged diesel engines and can carry 40 tons, massive things, and apparently have an onboard weighing system. When I went up to Leather Lane to do that film, I went to take a photograph, hopefully, of one lorry crossing Leather Lane, one dump truck, and there's a continual stream of them in both directions. So we're now looking at, and this is an artist's impression of what all the bridges will look like. The shallow cutting, alas, means that a very wide expanse of land is needed. We're now looking north beyond Leather Lane, and you can see the Iron Age earthworks of Grim's Ditch. Alas, a large section has now been destroyed, and Cottage Farm Overbridge, which is the next bridge, will cross the route just down the right-hand edge of the picture, just to the right of Grim's Ditch. Public right-of-way TL02 is now closed. That's on the left-hand side of the picture, and that will eventually cross the route on an overbridge. Moving on, this shows Bowood Lane, which is now closed for 2 years for the construction of an overbridge. Jones Hill Wood, to the left of the lane, is an ancient woodland, meaning it is over 400 years old, and over a third of it has been destroyed. There's 10 acres of new planting just to the north of the lane, but don't be too impressed with the number of trees that are being planted, because they only expect 25% of them to survive. Hs2 have conceded that it is not possible to create a new ancient woodland, or indeed to move an existing one, which is what they tried to do here. This is just the Hall Road crossing the lane and heading towards Jones Hill Wood. The road is now complete all the way to Wendover. Hundreds of lorry loads of tarmac have been used, and all of this will have to be removed once the construction is complete. This is public right-of-way TLE3, which runs alongside the lane and will remain open during construction. And there is another manned crossing of the Hall Road. This serves as a diversion route for a number of other footpaths that are closed until construction is completed, including the very popular Chiltern Way. We've been working with the contractors to ensure that these diversions are properly signposted. The hope is that these signs will remain in place and not be vandalised. The footpath has now been diverted to the north of the overbridge, and it will eventually be realigned across the bridge, which will be to the left. This is looking back up Bowood Lane, and the footpath comes down, the diverted footpath comes down to Bowood Lane and continues before rejoining its original alignment. The route continues over Wendover Dean Viaduct, starting just north of Jones Hill Wood. Durham Farm has been demolished and piling is now underway. And this will be the viaduct's north abutment. Several public rights of way have been closed for the construction period, and the Chiltern Way, which I mentioned, will eventually be reinstated along its original route underneath the viaduct. And this is what the viaduct would look like. It will be 450 metres long and consist of 10 spans. Supporting piers will be up to 14 metres high. And these are all going to be precast off-site in sections before being transported to the site by road, as I previously mentioned. Beyond the viaduct, the route will enter the Rocky Lane cutting. And to the left of the cutting here, there will be a plant maintenance depot and fuel storage, temporary, of course. The route then crosses Rocky Lane on its way to Wendover. This will be an underbridge, meaning it will go under the route. Offline construction again means that this busy lane will remain open while a bridge is constructed just to the north of the lane. And then the lane will be realigned over the route. Looking east across the Hall Road towards the underbridge, the lane has often been closed for a variety of work to be carried out, usually utility works of some description. And now this is just the Hall Road. We're looking along the Hall Road towards Wendover. And here, going further up Rocky Lane, we're looking back along the route towards the Rocky Lane cutting. Small Dean Viaduct will take the route over the A413. A small permanent diversion will be constructed here in order to accommodate one of the viaduct piers, and work is due to start on this later this year. And this just about shows the extent of the viaduct from the 413 on the right to just beyond Small Dean Lane on the left. A fully enclosed 600-metre long conveyor belt is being built to remove the stored spoil from earlier earthworks. This will cross the A413, and that section is clearly visible as you drive towards Wendover. It then crosses the Chiltern Railway and then Small Dean Lane. It will be used to move an estimated 640 cubic metres of spoil, well over 1 million tonnes of spoil, and the material, and it will be in place for 2 years. It is expected to save some 400 HGV movements a day over a 3.5-year period. It will start operating in September. This is where the viaduct will cross over the Chiltern Railway. So we're looking north from the A413 and then looking across from the other side. Extensive sheet piling here has been installed here to protect the railway. An old footpath bridge over the railway just to the south of here has been removed. This shows where the viaduct will cross the Chiltern Railway and then Small Dean Lane. And here we're looking along Small Dean Lane towards the Viaduct Crossing. This is an artist's impression of what the viaduct might look like. As you can see, you can just see the far one, the road slightly diverted around the pier, as we mentioned earlier. The route continues on an embankment up to 14 metres high alongside the Wendover bypass. Grove Farm Underbridge will take the farm track across Farm Access Road under the railway here. The route then enters the cut and cover Wendover Green Tunnel alongside Backham Lane. Backham Lane will be closed for 2 years, and another temporary link road will connect it to Aylesbury Road. It was here last year that archaeologists uncovered an Anglo-Saxon settlement of national significance, which was revealed on TV 2 or 3 weeks ago. 141 skeletons have been recovered, along with their 5th and 6th century burial grave jewellery. This is one of the largest Anglo-Saxon burial grounds ever found in Britain. It was also accompanied by other findings from previous Neolithic, Bronze Age, Iron Age and Roman activity. Quite a stunning find. A male skeleton was found with a sharp iron object embedded into its spine, which experts believe may have caused his death. Other items unearthed in the excavation last year include a large number of brooches, amber beads, buckles, spearheads and knives. A number of objects likely to have been used for grooming were also found, including toiletry sets with earwax removers and toothpicks, tweezers, combs, and there was even a cosmetic tube that might have been used for eyeliner or something similar. The tunnel itself will be 3/4 of a mile long. It will be excavated, by excavating a cutting in the ground, forming a tunnel box from precast concrete segments, and then covering it over with landscaping. There are serious concerns that construction would interfere with the flow of water into the Wendover arm of the Grand Union Canal and Western Turville Reservoir Nature Reserve, and diverting it towards Stoke Mandeville and increasing the flood risk in that area. I did mention this tunnel in the January update. It is designed as a double arch. The tunnel will have 2 separate halves for southbound and northbound trains. 5 different concrete precast segments will be slotted together to achieve the double arch. Each will be still reinforced, with the largest weighing 43 tons. Over 2,500 segments will be used. The segments are being made in Ilkeston, Derbyshire, and then transported all the way by road. Each round trip will be over 200 miles. For some inexplicable reason, Hs2 describes these as green tunnels. The tunnel will have specially designed porous portals on both ends to reduce the noise of the trains as they exit the tunnel. 6 houses will be demolished in Aylesbury Road, and here we're looking across what will be the green tunnel. The first 4 have now gone. Demolition of the other 2 has been delayed, believe it or not, by a bird's nest. And this is looking north from what will be the middle of the tunnel. Aylesbury Road will be diverted behind the remaining houses for 2 years before being reinstated over the green tunnel. 7 public rights of way will also be affected, and most are now closed until construction is complete. The ancient Ridgeway will be diverted along the temporary road before being realigned over the tunnel. And this is looking north along the tunnel past what was the Wendover Cricket Club Pavilion. And the cricket pitch is now used by their offices. Nice piece of level ground. This is looking west from Folly Bridge across the North Tunnel portal towards Coombe Hill, and the route continues in the Wendover north cutting towards Nashley Road. This is the last of the bridge. If you're driving along 4-way 13 and you want to know where HS2 is going, if you're not familiar with any of the places we've been talking about, if you look at the overhead power lines on the right going towards Wendover and on the left as it crosses over, they more or less follow, HS2 more or less follows their route. And then along the Wendover bypass, there are 3 bridges and a footbridge. The first of the 3 bridges is Backham Lane, where the South Portal is, and the last of the bridges is Folly Bridge, where the North Tunnel portal is. So it gives you a good idea of exactly where the tunnel will go. And this is the entrance to the Wendover Green Tunnel, North Satellite compound off the Wendover bypass. And this area here is where archaeologists uncovered a huge range of things, including a wood henge. This circular monument, some 65 meters in diameter, was made with wooden posts and had features aligned with the winter solstice. It was similar and a similar age to Stonehenge. Alas, that's all covered up now. The route then leaves the Chilterns crossing Nashley Road on its way to Stoke Mandeville, and then on across the Vale of Aylesbury. You can see most of the pictures I've used by visiting the Hs2 Photo Diary on the Chiltern Society website. This shows the impact of a number of locations across the Chilterns and is constantly updated. You can also see this will, we've recorded this, and there will be a link to the talk on YouTube as soon as we can get it posted. Incidentally, we will have a question and answer session afterwards, and that we won't record that, so you can speak quite freely. The next next online update will be on Saturday, the 21st of January 2023, which comes out only too quickly at 10:30. Regarding this presentation, if you're interested, I'm only too happy to do this presentation for any group. I've done them for most of the Rotaries and the U3As and goodness knows what in the local area. So you can just contact the Chiltern Society or me, and very happy to talk to you. I was going to go on, I think we've done enough. I was going to go on to Stoke Mandeville and Quainton because it's quite interesting beyond there, but it's gone on. I think you probably had enough. But at some stage I will add that section to the website, so we will have a section featuring across the Vale of Aylesbury as far as Cowley. And once again, I'd like to thank Andy Cordiner for making the aerial pictures possible. I'd also like to thank the contractors for their cooperation and for allowing me access to so many of the sites. They couldn't be more cooperative. And again, thank you, James, for enabling this to happen. And thank you all for attending.